Hey guys, welcome to Monday Mindset Mojo. And man, we've got a great show for you guys today. We have some really wonderful guests and we have some even more wonderful listeners. I want to welcome friends of mine. Richard, great to see you. Richard says, good morning, everyone. Nadira, my dear, hello, I can't hear anything. Nadira says, well, your wish is my command. We just fixed that. Actually, we just do a bit of a countdown, but I thank you for that feedback because I need to better inform the audience what's going on there because also Mary said you couldn't hear anything anyway. It is either, but it is wonderful to have you guys here today. Yeah, you can hear us rustling around in the background, getting a great show ready for you guys. And today we're going to talk about how to crush self-doubt. We're going to dig in with some great guys today. GreenMan, I'm hoping is going to be here. He may be having some tech difficulties, but we're ready. We got a space all ready and warmed up for him. Got a warm mic for GreenMan. Jeremy Fox at Next Level Psych is going to be here. He is a therapist and EMDR expert. He works to dismantle trauma myths. My friend Pep from at Pep Talks blog, who is a writer and a guide for authentic self-alignment. And we're going to tackle something that I've struggled with, that my guests have struggled with. I'm sure all of my listeners here have struggled with. We have, nearly 100 people here already, 54 on X alone. We're also live streaming to YouTube. We're live streaming to Facebook, to LinkedIn, and into my Mindset Masterclass, who sponsors this every Monday morning at 7 a.m. So I'd love to give you a personal invitation to join my Mindset Masterclass. Just hop over there to school.com/mindset. That is SKOOL.com/mindset. You can be our next lifetime member, giving away free memberships for life today. So hop over there and join that. And I look forward to a great roundtable with these wonderful young men who are going to talk to you guys. And we're going to dig into that self-doubt really isn't an emotion. It's really a cognition. It is a cognitive loop. And I put up in the advertisement on YouTube that this is like a cognitive cave troll. I guess I was streaming Lord of the Rings when I came up with this last night. But we're going to talk mindfulness, self-hypnosis, how humor even can disrupt some of these destructive, sabotaging thought patterns. We'll talk a bit about how maybe your childhood influences that. And I'm hoping my friend Sarah Beth from at 4 Alpha is going to be here. I'm not sure she can make it. But also, why to be careful of social media psychology echo chambers, which can amplify confusion, can reduce your clarity. And so without further ado, let me hop on here to our full panel. Pep, my friend, and Jeremy, it is great to see you. We're still kind of waiting around on GreenMan. Hopefully he can make it. He's over in another country, and you know, sometimes you just can't beat the technology, but we're going to keep on plowing forward. So I'd like to go to Pep and let him kind of give us a bit of his background. And then we're going to go to Jeremy. Thank you guys for being here. Pep, what kind of content do you put out on social media? And what are your thoughts getting started off on this topic about really how to crush self-doubt?
Yeah, I'm thinking what's relevant specifically to this topic is one of the things that kind of started my career writing was questioning norms and exploring for myself. What if I do something different, and what if I lean into trusting myself even when maybe there's conventional knowledge saying I'm wrong. And to be fair, I often found out I was indeed wrong. but uh, but sometimes I discovered that I was right to trust myself. And another thing is that I regularly host workshops and spaces where people feel into what's happening for them and learn to express it, even if it makes no sense. So, kind of aligning their speech with reality and then seeing what happens when that's expressed to another person.
You know, it really very much is. You know, we're going to talk today about how we talk about ourselves inside of our own heads and how we talk about ourselves to other people as well as how we listen to others talk about us, how that really has a huge influence on our confidence and on our self doubt. But let me go to my dear friend Jeremy. Jeremy, man, good to see you this morning. Share with us your background and what kind of content you put out and thoughts on this topic today so far.
Absolutely. So the kind of content I put out is really focused on the psychology of resilience, overcoming trauma, but also just developing that high performer mentality. So my background is of a clinical nature. I am a licensed professional counselor. So I see patients, much as you do, Dr. Heath, and specialize in working with PTSD. And there's actually quite a few people who are really highly successful despite having post-traumatic stress disorder. Some people either avoid the triggers altogether or have worked through them, but you'd be surprised who has PTSD and is a successful CEO or entrepreneur or high up in their company, but still struggle with it, and who struggles with self-doubt, right? So my approach to self-doubt is pretty similar to yours, is not viewing it as this one thing that's like an insecurity that pops up, right? Because it's different. But instead viewing it as kind of a mental schema, to use like a $10 psychology word there, but kind of this thought process, the loop, as you put out in the agenda, and how to overcome that through doing positive visualization with some bilateral eye movement, so EMDR therapy, which we can get into a little bit later, but essentially creating a new positive story and realistic positive story that they replay to kind of crowd out the bad movie that they're thinking of, that they have on repeat, like a YouTube video, to use that metaphor. Like it's just hitting it, it'll say like playing next video or on Netflix, right? That's what we do with self-doubt. It's not just a one emotion thing, it's a whole clip that plays on repeat. So it's great to be here. I love that we met on X.
Man, and thank you. I love that analogy about being like a YouTube video on repeat. You know, the thing is, I don't think that a lot of people realize that they have a video playing like that, but we do. And not just one. I think that we have a video like that. I just love the way you put that, that we have a video playing like that for when we're, gosh, I don't know, making a post on social media, when we're having a space, you know, a space, when we're having a live stream like this. I get my spaces and live streams mixed up. When they seem to kind of be the same thing. One's audio, one's video. But when we're engaging in a relationship, when we're going out for a new job, when we're founding a company, when we're leading a company, when we're leading a team, when we're talking with our children, even parents have this YouTube video like Jeremy's talking about. And the second thing is that we are the director, but we're also the script writer. I remember one of the assignments I had in grad school. It was actually one of my favorite ones. I really got into it. I wish I remember what I wrote it about. But the professor said, well, I want you to be creative. And I love trying to be creative. And so I wrote a script. And in a script, for those of you that don't know, and I'm not a professional screenwriter, but in a script, you have the dialogue and then you have the scene. So you write and I forget which way it goes, but you write the setting, you know, so here's where you are and here's what's going on, but here's what you're saying. The thing about what Jeremy's talking about is you're the script writer and you're writing both of those things. Now, here's the really difficult part of that is you don't often know that you wrote it. And then when you start living it out, and this is where I think, you know, techniques like EMDR come into play. When you're living it out, you may have once known that you wrote it, but you forget that you wrote it. And so a lot of the work with trauma that Jeremy does and I do, it helps people realize that. And so you can literally, you know, rewrite that script. And let me welcome some folks here. Your son, my good friend, it is so good to see you here today. Your son, Sam, we're coming through loud and clear. Thank you very much. my friend Richard shared with me. Oh, I overlaid those, didn't I? I'll fix that in a minute. Said that our mics are a bit low. You know, I love that kind of, no pun intended, I love that kind of feedback. And this is the thing that you know, not to give, it's not a space on therapy, but we're going to be talking about some of that stuff, is that it is somebody giving you feedback that you can consider to help you rewrite that script. Again, I want to welcome Awesome Mary. Mary, thank you for being here today. And go invite some people, guys. We're going to be here for about the next, what is it, a little over an hour talking about these things. And if you have some thoughts, drop those in the chat. I'm going to pull those up on the stage. Nadira is wondering where I am. Well, I'm right here, my dear. It's good to see you. Always great to see Nadira in the space. But yes, go and invite some friends. And if you know some people that struggle with their self-confidence and their self-doubt, we would love to have them in the room today. And so we're going to jump into this thing of, you know, the whole core concept. I remember being trained by Aaron Beck. You know, he would have these conferences, and one of the conferences he had actually was around his 90th birthday. So I got to meet Aaron Beck at his 90th birthday. He is the originator of cognitive behavioral therapy. Hey there, Kim. It's good to see Kim. Kim is a member of the Mindset Masterclass. Great things she posts on there. But one of the things that Beck teaches about are core beliefs. Now, I want to give you guys an assignment, you know, a mission if you choose to accept it. You know, the new Mission Impossible movie is about to come out. I can't wait to see it. But your mission, should you choose to accept it, is start being aware of your own core beliefs. What is it that you're telling yourself about yourself when you're having a difficult emotion? What, like, I don't know, anxiety. What are you deciding to tell yourself about yourself? I read a great article this morning from Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, the Terminator. And he told the story when he first started competing, his calf muscles, his lower leg didn't measure up. And people kind of made fun of that. He had these big bicep guns and shoulders and, you know, a chest that just, you know, exploded out of his, out of the front of his body. And so he said that he cut off the bottom of his warm-up, so he had to focus on his calves. And he said that looking at his calves every day motivated him to work on those calves every day. But then he said a weird thing happened. People started to say, oh, well, he's got great calves. It must just be genetics. He said the funny thing is they didn't remember making fun of my calves. And then when I worked on them and they got bigger, they started saying, oh, it's just genetic. The point that Arnold made in his, he has a newsletter called the Pump Club. It's a great newsletter. You guys check it out. But he said the point he made the point he made this morning in Pump Club is that it's not genetics. So many people want to blame genetics. They want to blame their setting. They want to blame their spouse. They want to blame the weather. You know, can't exercise, it's too hot or whatever. And Arnold said, well, he didn't say this, but I'll say it. He kind of alluded to it. It's an inside job, you know. He said that when he decided to focus on this weakness, the weakness went away. When he decided to focus on the problem and not hide it under long pants, he literally turned his pants into shorts so that he would have to focus on it every single day. And that's what I'm encouraging you guys to do with this thing we call self-doubt. I hope that you don't just stop and label it self-doubt. Specify it. Here's what I believe about myself or think about myself. I think that I can't. I think that I will be unable to. I think that I don't have the genetic capability to do whatever. And when you really stare at that so-called deficiency in the harsh light of a steady mindset, you're going to find out, like Arnold, that you can do so much more about it than you ever believed that you could. But I'm going to go back to Jeremy here, and we're going to get real. I'm going to share some of mine. But what are some ways that you found that work for you, Jeremy, when you, I don't know, when you are doubting yourself?
Man, that's a really good question. So a few different things. So for one, I look back at stuff that I've already done. And so that's a big thing in cognitive behavior therapy, by the way, is to gather evidence on the accuracy of your thoughts, through just being curious. So curiosity is a big clinical asset. Like it's a meta skill. It's the skill that leads to other skills. Basically, it's cultivating that curiosity, that ability to ask questions. So, um, for example, like I went into a training to learn a new therapy this last weekend, and so we had to practice it. It was similar to EMDR therapy, right? It was called Accelerated Resolution Therapy, or ART. Cool acronym. So when I went in to practice it initially, you have to do it in front of a trainer. It's like, okay, so there's going to be a little bit of that observation there, which makes a lot of people nervous. And I'll say, like, I thought, okay, I want to do it really well. I don't want to make mistakes. But then I stop and think, okay, so I'm going to make mistakes because it's a new protocol. So just right out of the gate, normalizing mistakes and saying the way the human brain works is through repetition. You get better the more you practice something and encode the process in your memory. That's how we learn. So you have to normalize mistakes and say, okay, so that's not failure. Those are mistakes, and they're very different. And so not using that word failure and using like a mistake or a learning process is huge. And then saying, well, I've already learned this one therapy that I really enjoy, and this one's similar. And so, I do pretty well at that one. So let me just fail forward on this and learn it the same way I learned the last one. So you bring up, almost into your movie metaphor, you're bringing up almost like a flashback in a positive way of when you were able to do something. And so to call out the obvious here, you have to dive into life and develop things and explore your talents and what you're good at. And then you can use that to leverage in the future when you're feeling unsure about something.
I love that because I always look, and I'll get Pep's take on this. I always look at absence of failure would lead to absence of success. Think about that. If you're going to succeed in anything, you're going to have to be willing to fail. The research on it, guys, is around 10,000 hours. That in order to master something, you're going to have to get in your 10,000 hours. It really is very incongruent, and I think we're really kind of fibbing to ourselves when we say, I want to be a great golfer, but I want to be able to accomplish that by this time next week, or I want to be a great, as Jeremy it does therapy, but I want to, really tackle being a great therapist or even mastering a new technique because I went to a class yesterday. It's just not going to happen, and if you look at someone else and you think, oh, well, but they went to the class yesterday or they're in the class today and they're already spectacular, what you're missing out on, the underthinking component of that, the ignoring important aspects of the situation is often what's below the surface of the water that you just don't see. Maybe they've got this huge foundation that they've already built up and you don't see all that work. So when you see somebody and you think, oh my goodness, they are so good at that, and it seems like they started yesterday, no, that's only because that's the amount of information you're aware of. It's just the information you're aware of. You're unaware of all the part of that iceberg of effort, failure, weeping, wailing, gnashing of teeth that you can't even see, well, Arnold was a bodybuilder. Great bodybuilders aren't built on stage. Great bodybuilders are built in the gym, and blood, sweat, and tears, guys. And yeah, I've seen a lot of tears from bodybuilders, a lot of tears from weightlifters. My wife said here a few months ago, I usually close the door when I'm working out, and I got finished with my workout, and she said, some of you guys have heard this story before. She said, "Why were you crying?" And was it crying? There's no crying and weightlifting, you know. But yeah, I do a lot of moaning and groaning. And so don't think that the moaning and the groaning, and as I like to say, the weeping, wailing, gnashing of teeth, and the failure, like Jeremy talked about, is an aberration. It's just you. It's not just you. No successful person gets to that level of success without having a heap, if not a mountain of failure. But like Jeremy pointed out, fail forward. And I would say this: don't waste your failures. If you're going to fail, and you will, and you can't undo the failure, you can't unfail, then why would you waste that? Pep, what do you think about that? How do you apply that in your life? What are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I very much align with this idea of failure being a part of it, or at least, you know, temporary failure where we try something and like, oh, this doesn't go great. And I think for me, what made a huge change was that there's self-doubt, like doubting myself as a person, and there is doubt of like, well, am I good enough at this skill yet, or you know, these sort of questions. And I think the latter, like, it can be good if it's not like over the top. It's good for calibrating. You know, if I'm actually weak at something, it might be good for me to know that, and then, but to not judge that or shame myself about it, and say, okay, you know, let me work on it, and or let me gather feedback. You know, I'll do it, and I'll see what other people, how they respond to what I'm doing, and then see how does it feel for me. Um, but more widely, for me, it's like, do I doubt myself throughout this process on a meta level? Like, you know, can I handle the outcomes that maybe I'll be confident of something and find out that other people didn't think it was so great, or maybe I try something that I'm unsure about, and I get a lot of compliments. Like, can I accept them? If there are moments of freak out, like, can I trust that maybe I'm just supposed to have this freak out, kind of ride it through until I get whatever realization of it. And so for me, a lot of it is like, when the doubt arises, um, yeah, accepting that, okay, this is part of it. Can I be with it? You know, can I not question these thoughts and not take them too seriously, and just like be riding the bike through it, and trust that if I fall, I can handle it too, and you know, I'll take responsibility to get up and get better.
Yeah, I agree. I would recommend when you're having doubt, change your lingo, change your wording. Wording equals programming in the brain. It's the whole thing. What I do with clinical hypnosis. You know, I do a lot of clinical hypnotherapy, and some of what I do comes from the field of NLP. There's a lot of relationship between EMDR and NLP, neuro
Yes.
linguistic programming. Words are programming. There's a reason why, hopefully, if you're a parent, you would not allow your teenager, your adolescent, to stand in front of the mirror and tell themselves how ugly or stupid or worthless they are. Hopefully, you would interrupt that cognitive loop and have a conversation. Well, what Pep and Jeremy and I are talking about is interrupting that loop and what? Having a conversation with yourself. I was having a conversation with Kim this morning. Kim, thanks again for being here. About words and phrases that people pick up from social media, and they don't stop to ask themselves, well, wait a minute, is this term helpful or harmful to my mindset? What does this term really mean? But people hear things repeatedly, and they just kind of grab onto them, they cabbage onto them, but it may lead you into having a very self-sabotaging thought loop that comes from, you know, the more, like Jeremy pointed out, in the brain, the more things are repeated, the more powerful they come in the brain, because of two things. They get deeper those thoughts get deeper, and guess what? Those thoughts make friends of other neuronal structures. And if you look at the research on what's the process or the phenomenon is called long-term potentiation, the more you repeat something, the brain decides, well, this must be important. Now, let me stop and give you some examples. That means whether you say, I can do it, or I'm a failure, I'll never do it, your brain doesn't care. If you repeat either one of those, your brain will perceive that those linguistics, those words, those phrases are important, and you're going to get better and better and better at telling yourself that you're a failure. And moreover, just because a venture doesn't succeed, or in Arnold Schwarzenegger's case, just because you have smaller, in Arnold's case, smaller than preferred calves, doesn't mean there's nothing you can do about it. It doesn't mean, oh, I must have this genetic predisposition to being a failure. Well, if you decide to think that, your mind is going to make that real. But we're going to talk today about some more strategies to get a handle on that. I want to say hi to my dear friend Sega from X. Sega has a wonderful account, one of the wisest people on X. I want to thank Richard. Richard was telling me that my mic was lower. Richard, my friend, he gave me a thumbs up better. See, I never know how I sound in other people's ears, nor do you. That's why if we're communicating, it's great to check it out. Michael Holding is here. It's good to see you, Michael. Thank you for joining the conversation. Merging icebergs, Arnold, and movies. There wouldn't be room for him on that during the Titanic with Rose, if you get my vibe. Yeah, that's indeed true. Arnold could have lifted the ship out of the ocean and rescued everybody. I got to meet Arnold one time in Columbus, Ohio. He really is well, I mean, it was a long time ago. It was well over, gosh, I guess that was probably 25 years ago I met Arnold. But a very imposing guy. He said two words to me that were life-changing. I was sitting in a crowd of people waiting to get my picture taken with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he said these two words that if you repeat them to yourself, look in the mirror and say these words to yourself. Very simple words, but Arnold said, "Come on!" I was standing back there waiting to have my picture taken. I didn't want to just rush in, and Arnold saw me waiting, and he said, "Come on!" And I thought, wow, what great words. Look at yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, "Come on!" You can even do it in Arnold's voice. "Hey, you, come on." Stop waiting and come on and do something. I love what Awesome Mayor said, use your failures to better yourself. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly. What are you going to do with those failures? As I said earlier, if you can't unfail, then why not use that failure as a building block, as a stepping stone? A friend of mine on X, Hitch, put up a great post, and he showed this dude standing at a wall trying to get over the wall. And guess what he was standing on? He was halfway up, but he still couldn't reach the top because of the things he was standing on. What was he standing on? A pile of ladders. He was standing on a pile of ladders. So why not turn your failures into ladders and use those ladders to get over the freaking wall like Waylon has? I want to welcome my friend Waylon and his beard. I always have to give due respect to Waylon's beard. To the live stream today, Waylon has a great daily live stream. Waylon, the indoor farmer. So Waylon, thank you so much for being here. And so let's talk more about this cognitive loop, maybe from a bit of a psychological foundation, Jeremy. You know, what is it that you find that people do that they're able to, get over that wall of self-doubt?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that I noticed that people do that's really helpful is, and what I help people do is replace the negative thought loop with a positive one. Because as you and I both know, from a psychological science perspective, you can't break habits. You have to replace them. Just like Indiana Jones, has to replace the object that he's taking from the temple with another one to weight that down. I mean, I love that imagery and thinking of that. You can't really take something out of your life and say, okay, all good, because you're gonna notice the absence. You have to fill that up. It's like if you need to get a new refrigerator, you see a big hole in your wall here. You're not gonna have any food. You're gonna see what used to be there, and that's very much what our thoughts are. Is you have to replace that, and so you have to start with something like, I can be better at blank, whatever that is. I'm learning to be better. It doesn't have to be I'm the greatest right away, because that's where people go wrong, is they'll think all or nothing. I'm either really terrible and the worst at something, or I'm amazing at it. It's like, well, no, probably neither right away, right? Exactly. It's probably I'm in the process of blank, and then replacing that with some imagery of, to speak in kind of NLP terms, some kind of rescripting of imagining what it would be that you're doing, and it's going positively, and it's a minor thing, a smaller bite that you've taken out of that. Because what's happening is the default mode network is running amok, and you're turning inward. So the prefrontal cortex, the cingulate cortex, the precuneus, all those different elements of the default mode network, that's our self-reflection system, are implicated in doubt, right? And so replaying past memories. Okay, well, what's the solution? Well, a lot of mindfulness and noticing present moment awareness, a lot of deciding to switch gears and do something different and do rather than think. Clients want to think their way into success, okay? And so I hate to spoil this and burst the bubble. We do our way into things, even when we don't feel like doing it. There's been so many times I felt like, well, this wasn't my best day, to go in and be therapist. Am I going to cancel clients because of that? No. It's not about feeling, it's about doing. And you activate your brain's salience network, that the center, actually the structures, the several structures involved in doing things. So the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, all the scientific terms for the parts of the brain involved in noticing the present and doing. And so switching, like you gear shift in a car, to say, okay, I've got self-doubt now, but you know what? Those are thoughts. They may or may not even be true. So I'm going to now do this new thing I want to try. I'm going to go play volleyball, even though I might look silly. Or I'm going to bowl, even though my friend's a lot better. I'm going to watch the ball roll down. I'm going to focus on that present thing, even though my thoughts want to go this way or that way. And I want to start doing that running commentary like a sitcom. Let's turn off the commentary and let's turn on just watching the event like a drama. You don't have a laugh track or narration usually in a drama. That's a sitcom. So like, let's switch the genre here and notice life this way in the moment. And you'll fail at it a lot at first, and that's part of it, is recognizing that's okay.
I love that, noticing it in the moment. I think a lot of people are really afraid of the moment. And by the way, Mary, yeah I love that image of Raiders Lost. Yeah, man, one of my favorite movies, Raiders Lost Ark. And then Arch Brian, hey Brian, thank you for being here. Failure and success are two sides of the same coin. Yeah, that's so true. But a lot of people just want half a coin. They just want that one side of the coin. And I love what Mary said, that she heard the other day. Nothing's fun until you're good at it. Well, yeah, I think a lot of people think that. A lot of people are programmed that it can't be fun until I'm good at it. And I used to think the same thing. Hey, GreenMan, let me get GreenMan up here. All right, GreenMan, welcome to the show, my friend. Can you hear us? Testing. He's in the green room. Let me add him.
Green room.
All right, he's in the green room. He's out of the green room. GreenMan in the green room. That's amazing. GreenMan, can you hear us okay, my friend?
I can't.
Oh, we lost him. I heard I can't. Don't you love technology, folks? He'll be back. But I used to think that too. Okay, he's back and he's in the room. GreenMan, can you hear us now?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, GreenMan, yes, sir. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, is he gone again? Oh my gosh. Yeah, sketchy internet lines, I'm telling you. We're going to fiber optic the world one day. We won't have these problems. But I finally got fiber optic here a couple years ago. Huge game changer. Green Man, you back?
I think so. Can you hear
You
me?
are. Yes. Oh, fantastic. Is
Brilliant. Oh,
Hannibal?
I'm really sorry. I've had such a nightmare getting onto this. My
I
bad.
know. I know. I was just saying that. I said probably you got technological difficulties, as
Yeah.
Star Hulk from Hulk and the Agents of Smash would say. Technological difficulties. Technology.
Ex-
He would say stinking
Technology. Yeah.
technology. But yeah, so we were talking about success and failure and learning and having fun while you're doing it. And I had such a great conversation with Green Man the Friday, I think, before last, and on Executive Espresso about his journey to become this genius level creator. And I'm not saying it because he's here. I mean, he does some really, really good stuff. But and so here's how that worked. He one day decided he would make videos, and he got his equipment. He went to bed. The next day, he was a pro. He was a genius. It happened overnight. That's the untold story of Green Man. Is except for that, none of that happened. That is not. And I want to hear from him in a moment what really happened. But let me get to Mary's point there. That I think we have a belief, and I did too, that the process between starting point and mastery has to suck. You know, we catastrophize it, we think it's awful. But here's what I hope you guys will see before you spend as many years thinking that as I did, is really the most exciting part is the journey of learning. You know, I'm still, yeah, it's really, really weird. I actually sent an email to my philosophy professor from undergrad school. Now, he was my philosophy professor in the early 80s, so it's been a long time. Wonderful guy, one of my favorite professors ever. By the way, he also taught not just philosophy, but religion and theology. And his name is Dr. Holier. I kid you not. Dr. Holier, the religion professor. You can't make this stuff up. But I remember struggling to learn philosophy, a lot of really, kind of hard concepts there. And I fell in love with it. I literally fell in love with the process of learning philosophy. And I sent him an email that said, hey, I'm going back through some of my undergraduate philosophy books, and we talked about different things. But my point is that you will learn so much quicker if you'll stop catastrophizing the learning process and see it as a privilege. The ability that your brain has to learn new information, to construct new knowledge, that's the gift. Now, the mastery is just the cherry on top. The mastery is just the icing on the cake. Don't wait around for the mastery to enjoy the process, because you'll miss the journey. And so some of the things that you struggle to learn and you catastrophized them, and go back and find the value in those. And before we go to Green Man, one of my favorite stories is of I've told it so many times, I wish I could remember the guy's name, but I can't. A world famous violinist who was considered, a master. And he was, I think, like in his late 70s or 80s or something like that, had granted an interview to a reporter. She tracked him down and found this master of the violin doing what? Still working on mastering the violin. She asked him, you're a master, why do you keep on practicing? He said, because I think I'm making progress. I think I'm making progress. And one of the things, and Jeremy, you can see Jeremy's kind of a young guy. I would recommend to anybody in my profession is never lose the love for learning new things about your profession. And that's what I do. I learn something new every day. I just keep on learning, keep on sculpting and things like that. And so, again, thank you guys for being here. Share out the live stream. We have a snarky comment from Waylon the Farmer. Says that Green Man used to be Blue Man, but he decided to go green because, yeah, the Blue Man guys were taken, right? So those guys are out in Las Vegas. Green Man, tell us about your journey to mastery. I know you wouldn't call it that, but I think you are. But what's your journey to mastery for all these great video clips that you do?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me, Doc. Guys, really nice to see you. By the way, I noticed you put my name as GreenMan Presents. It's actually GreenMan Reports, but that's okay. I won't hold it
Oh,
against you.
look at no
But
kidding. It was late. I can't believe I did that.
no worries, no worries, no worries, man. Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it mastery. We never really. I think when you're trying to achieve something, when you're going for something, and it's for the skill itself or for the art form, you never there is no mastery, and that's one of the beauties of it. Every day is a school day, right? Every day you're learning something new. Everything you're learning something that you can apply to your art, your work. For me, when I started this, I started a year ago last month, right? So I've been doing this for almost a year. Video editing knowledge before that, I did a little bit with Premiere Pro, but I wasn't. It was nothing like what I'm kind of wanted to do with this channel. So I decided early on, because I've done a lot of things in my life, right? So I've had a band, I play guitar, I sing, I've got to a moderately high level with that. I've had a couple businesses before, stuff like that. So I know what it takes to take something that doesn't exist and then make it. So like from nothing to something, that process I was familiar with. But more importantly, I was also familiar with my own hang-ups and mental blocks during that process, self-doubt coming in, all these kind of things when they kind of start coming into the fold, and at what stages, right? So at the beginning, when you're first starting out, everything's new, everybody's excited, everybody around, if you've decided to tell people around you, they're all excited for you, blah blah blah. And then you start gaining traction. After a while, you're on your own, all that kind of starts to fade away. It becomes, okay, this is just something that you're doing and you're becoming successful, blah blah blah. And then you start getting to a higher level, and then it can mess with your head. It can, the art can suffer, the content can suffer, the work can suffer, because you're not in the right mental state or your mental frame for it. So I was very aware of all those things coming into it. So I decided when I came into it, I was only going to look at it one way, and that way was, every video I want to be better than the last one, right? I saw this clip of Mr. Beast, I think it was, or somebody talking about Mr. Beast, and they said his advice when you're started out in video is ignore every metric for the first 100 videos, right? Ignore everything, your follower count, how many views, all that stuff. Just focus on making every single video better than the last one. Focus on the work, right? And I really took that to heart. And I think I told you last time, it wasn't like, by the time I went, oh yeah, maybe I should, how many videos have I actually done now? Maybe I should start paying attention to metrics. I was at like 130, 140 videos, something like that, right? So, and I think that's what's kind of carried me forward, and kind of kept me grounded, is the fact that it's just the videos. I want to make every single one better. Um, Focusing on it that way, the growth is slower. Obviously, I'm not making any money out of this. We're still monetized at like lower levels, whatever it is. But everybody who kind of finds the stuff and watches it and gets it really likes it, right? And I think they understand that with me, I'm not making videos to please the algorithm. I'm not making videos to kind of the point of it is the work itself, right? It's not for anything else. It's like, I think I said that Banksy quote last time. It's one of my favorite all-time quotes. When he said to for the time for fame just for the sake of it is over, right? Any fame that you get is a byproduct of the art that you make, but the art is always the point, right? You don't go to a restaurant and eat a meal just because you want to have a shit, right? The meal is the point. Do you know what I mean? And fame is just a byproduct. The money's the byproduct. So I've always taken that to heart, whether it be when I was doing my music or anything else. The idea of being true to the actual content, or what I'm making, was always something that was important to me. And finally, X has given me a platform where I was able to do that and not be constrained by anybody else telling me what to do, right? If I was trying to do this elsewhere, when before the days of the internet, I need producers and management and whoever else telling you to do other stuff. So this is really, we have this kind of this opportunity, and I feel like this is one of the first times I actually grabbed it with both hands and done it properly, so to speak. But yeah.
Yeah, Kant, Immanuel Kant, by the way, one of the most famous philosophers of all time, did his put his life work into a book. He published it. He was excited, and he later said about the book, it fell from the womb stillborn. Nobody bought it. Nobody liked it.
Yeah.
It was doomed to the mists of history, and that's it's of course Kant is famous. Who no one that knows philosophy doesn't know Immanuel Kant. One of my favorite
Oh, yeah.
philosophers. Categorical imperative lives such that how you live could be replicated by others, and lots of great things like that. But look at modern day Hollywood stars. Why does someone who is one of the most famous actors in the world or actresses in the world, why do they keep on doing movies? They already have more money than they could ever spend. They have more fame than they ever dreamed. They're a household name. Why would they keep on working? It can't be for the fame and the money. If that's
No.
the only reason they were doing it, they would stop. And as a matter of fact, a lot of them do. One hit wonders. They make a buku of money, then they stop making music. And so you got to do what GreenMan said, is do it for the love of the art itself. Whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
The other thing I like to point out really, really quick came from the guy that put my cameras in my house here and my panels and all my AV stuff. I referred a customer over to him. I was trying to do him a favor. And I asked him later, I said, how'd that work out? He said, yeah, they decided not to use us. And I said, oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. He said, don't worry about it. Everyone is not your customer. See, now that's the thing that people forget on social media. For whatever weird reason, people that create like GreenMan or Jeremy or Pep or myself, it's easy to get into the mindset that if someone doesn't like a video or like a production or like a post, or if it doesn't get a lot of likes, that was a waste of time. That's a terrible litmus test for the value of the work. The value of the work, if it is valuable, can only be judged by you. It is certainly not up for a popular vote. So I would recommend trusting yourself to decide if what you're doing has value or not. Now, if you're just going to post crap, and copy crap and post the stuff that you copied, then yeah, that's kind of, that's a no-brainer. So put some work into it, put some thought into it, and thinking up good stuff is really hard work. As GreenMan and Pep and Jeremy can tell you, it's really easy to copy. It's really hard to think up good stuff. The good news is, and I think Jeremy would back this up, is and my other friends here too, is that the more you grind your gears to put out something that has value, the better you'll get at putting out stuff that has value. I have so many more ideas than I could ever put out because I just don't have time to sculpt them all. And so I put out the best that I can. I don't say the best for last. That came from Martha. I used to have a writing coach. Her name was Martha. I don't recall her last name, but I give her a shout out. But I just remember her name was Martha. Great lady. I asked her a question about, if I have a really great idea for the book, shouldn't I kind of wait and save it to the end? She said, never save your best stuff. Always put out your best stuff, because then you'll come up with better stuff than the stuff you used to call your best stuff. And so, GreenMan, we talked, and I think that you said that you, I don't think you addressed it. I hope I didn't miss it, but about how long it took you initially to produce create one of these great videos that you put out? Oh, if you're still with us, GreenMan, but he can come back later. But what about you guys? How long does it take for you? What's your story of mastery of something, Pep? You have a blog, but you didn't get good at doing your blog right off the bat, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I even wonder if I'm already good at it, and it's been 10 years. um, and I think you were saying something about the violinist, that keeps practicing. And like, for example, I'm just thinking now, like, I was writing a book last year, right? And when I wrote the last chapter, I would reread the first one, and I'd say, "Well, this isn't good anymore. Like, it's not up to standards anymore." And then I did realize I'm not gonna rewrite it, because if I do, then that will lead me to further um, improvement in the skill. And by the time I've rewritten the last one, I'll feel the same way again. So that's to be accepted. But what I also noticed is that then I came back to writing blog posts, and the skill had kind of eroded a little bit. I had spent so much time writing tweets and the book that I had lost touch with that format. I noticed my blog posts getting worse again. So there's definitely something about that practice being continuous and there being some muscle memory. Um, I guess my point is, like, it took a lot of hours, and then it isn't that, oh, now I've achieved this. It's like, well, now it continues to take hours. The more you do it, the better you get. And especially consciously doing it, like reviewing what didn't go great. But there seems to never have been a point where I arrived and said, oh, now I've mastered it. It seems like, okay, I keep getting better, but I have to keep treating it as if I'm an eternal student somehow.
Yeah, it really seems like there's a fine line between good enough and then
Yeah.
getting to a point where you think that's good enough, and so you stop. The I think the tipping point is
Yeah.
it's not yet good enough, so I'm not gonna put it out there, or I'm not gonna try, or I'm not gonna go public with this, or whatever. I'm not gonna take the bat and walk up to home plate and swing the bat at a ball coming at me at 90 something miles an hour. I'm not good enough. And the other side of it is I'm good enough, therefore I don't need to work at it. I don't need to keep honing my skill. And so Jeremy said something that got started. When we got started, I'm looking forward to his thoughts on this. Is what was your thought process where you decided, I'm going to maybe spend some money and my time to go to yet another training? Because of what Jeremy and I do, man, there's thousands and thousands of trainings out there. I mean, you can have more certifications at the end of your name than there's room on your letterhead to put all the certifications. And so, Jeremy, what was your thought process? Yeah, I think I'm going to go learn something new.
Man, I love that question. So I'll be authentic with you. I usually only go to trainings if they have some sort of reprocessing modality involved. So something like brain spotting has been on my radar for a while. So brain spotting is a therapy that involves moving your eyes to find kind of the spot where a trauma memory feels most intense, or a spot where a positive memory feels most vivid, right? And kind of lingering there. So, and you can find that information out on the web. But ART, accelerated resolution therapy, is another therapy similar to EMDR, but it involves some different elements, and it's like a different recipe. So that I can't like share openly because there's some restrictions around it. But it's when I looked into it and saw, and I spoke to people too who were practitioners of it, and so I did a little interview. I asked them what they liked about it, and I looked into it myself and what's out there that you can read about and how it's different and more directive. It actually, I think, has some. I mean, it has some very interesting elements to it that are more, that is more directive and a little bit more. I'm trying to think of what I can share really. There's a different flavor to it than EMDR therapy, and it's. I mean, I love EMDR. I'm always going to be an EMDR proponent, and I love facilitating it. And so there were a few things, like there was an element of reprocessing thoughts and not just talk. That's very key. Another element is that there's research backing it and showing that it lives up to the name. There's accelerated resolution. So I think when you look into training, some therapists get training addiction, right? It's not an official diagnosis, but and that's imposter syndrome a lot of time. And that's a whole nother topic self-doubt and imposter syndrome are very tightly related, right? So it's, any training I do, I want it to build on something very action focused. I love DBT. I love some elements of different talk therapies. Great. But for the most part, a lot of therapy I do is very dynamic and very reprocessing focused. So very much getting into the mind. Oh, by the way, I'm doing an NLP training, and the reason neuro-linguistic programming, because I think that's really interesting. And there's some hypnosis elements to that. So anything that gets to the parts of the brain that we typically can't through talking alone, right? Through the kind of conscious frontal lobe to frontal lobe communication is something I'm interested in learning, because talk is cheap unless it's therapy, then it's expensive, right? And I don't want to be controversial. I'm making a very controversial statement. It's good for radio, right? But I really think that therapies that get deeper into the level below the talk. What are the thoughts, and how do they manifest as emotions below the surface?
Yeah. Because we kind of live up here in our conscious mind, but then there's the subconscious and the unconscious. And, to quote a phrase I've been quoting for many years now, from Carl Jung, until the unconscious is made conscious, it will continue to control our lives. We'll call it fate. That is, we'll attribute our own unconscious scripting, our own unconscious programming to other people. Oh, it's Pep's problem, or it's Jeremy's fault, or it's GreenMan's fault. It's that darn video that GreenMan put out. That's why I'm having a hard day, or that's why my day sucks. Yeah. But we'll attribute to outside influences. And so what I'd like to present you guys with is your thinking on this. Fill in the gaps, fill in the blank. But what I'm hearing Jeremy say, and what I've heard all of you say, and I hope I'm not making this up in my head, is that you have a skill set, you work on it, you get better at it, but it's kind of like a sculpture. It's a sculpture that's never done. It's a sculpture that you got to chip away at for the rest of your career, if not the rest of your life. And so there's always something new that you can learn. Now, I only know one profession really, and that's my own. I kind of know carpentry because I grew up building houses, but with my dad, by the way, a master carpenter. But my field is psychology, undercurrent of cognitive neuroscience. And that's my field, and I will never know enough about it to stop learning about it. And I think that's what people, even in psychology, people get in an echo chamber. If they're psychodynamic, they're just psychodynamic. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know anything else. And I'm actually not that much of a psychodynamic guy or a psychoanalytic guy, though I find a lot of value in those. That's where the field started, right, with Freud. But I like to explore that. Dr. Shedler, Jonathan Shedler, wrote an article that is in our field, it's kind of a famous article about the value of the remaining value this many years after Freud of understanding and looking at things from a psychoanalytic mind frame, a psychoanalytic mindset. And so I even look into areas of the field that I actually don't practice just because I want to learn about them, But what about that, guys? What about sculpting things? And on this point, I want to go to GreenMan. Before we lost him, GreenMan, I was asking, you shared a great story of one of your first videos and how long it took you that I think might shock people, how long it took you when you were first getting started, because I don't think you came at it with some huge ivory tower college degree on video production. GreenMan, if you can hear me. We may come back to that question momentarily, but tell us what you guys think, Jeremy and Pep, about mastery. Pep, you said, I'm not sure if I still put out a good blog or if I'm gaining mastery, but how much have you worked at it? What are your kind of share some insight on, the life of a guy that puts out a blog? I've found it takes a heck of a lot of work.
Yeah, initially,
There we go.
There we go. GreenMan's back in the room, but go ahead, Pep. Then we're going to go to GreenMan.
yeah, initially, and this comes back to something else you said about like being good enough. It's like I've spent a lot of time doing it. I've definitely, posted hundreds of blog posts throughout the year. But initially, I just said, it doesn't have to be good. Whatever I make, I'm gonna put it out there, and if people judge it or people don't respond at all, that's feedback, and that's an approach that I've taken many times, like with music as well. I would just write the song and then go play it on a stage, and if everybody disliked it, then I knew I had to work on on something. But so that kind of got through that gets past the self-doubt of like maybe I am underestimating where I'm already at, but it also brings me to humility of like, oh, okay, I'm doing something, but it's clearly not that good yet. And with time, got really lucky that people would give me candid feedback and say, this is specifically what made it challenging for me. And then I could choose, oh, is that something that I like and I want to keep in it? Or are they pointing to something I wasn't unaware of? But in all, yeah, it's been an iterative process of, like I said, writing hundreds of posts, and the initial ones take longest. It's like 4 to 8 hours. Maybe now it's 3 to 4, because I also get better at writing them. But definitely wasn't a short thing where like in the first year everything went great and the skill just progressed. And there are plateaus. I remember that. Like there are times of acceleration with the skill, and then there are suddenly months where I have no clue how to improve it or where I'm really at, because the feedback loop just dies down a little bit.
Yeah, and before we go to GreenMan, one quick point on that is it is important to decide who you're going to give permission to criticize your work. Number two, it's important to realize that when you get that critique, it's not a critique of you, it's a critique of the work. Too many people think synonymously of themselves and the work. That's two very different things. If you're a sculptor, your work is the statue, you're not the statue. If you're a painter, your work is the canvas, you're not the canvas. If you're a carpenter, your work is the house, you're not the house. If you're a clinician, psychotherapist, whatever, your work is the process, the protocol, not you. Irving Yalom, I've told this story before, but Irving Yalom, a prolific writer with some really great books out there. One called, I think, on Becoming Myself or something like that. A lot of people could stand to read. But he said he did an experiment where he gave his patients permission to critique the sessions. And he said the most amazing thing happened. He said the sessions that I thought were killer, man, I just knocked it out of the park, the patients said sucked. And the sessions where he thought I really sucked, where he thought he really sucked, the patient said he knocked it out of the park. You see, we are really terrible evaluators of our own stuff. That's why we should have a circle of people and say, hey, what do you think? I had a friend of mine that put up a website. Jane does wonderful, wonderful work. and she sent me the link. I looked at it and I said, man, overall, that looks really great. I love everything about it. I did notice when I'm scrolling that the different frames are kind of glitchy. I'll scroll up and it'll be glitchy. And some people would have said, oh, well, you're just too critical or something like that. Jane, no, she said, thank you. And that's what you should do. Think of it this way: when someone's criticizing you, they're giving you free business consultation. Now, if they criticized you and asked you for money, then well, you might not want to pay the money. But man, most of the time, people criticize for free. Why is that a bad thing? Why not just take it as, hey, they shared some information with me that I didn't have before. They're not criticizing me. I am not the work. The work is the work. I'm here chiseling away at the work, and they're looking at an aspect, an angle of the work that maybe I missed. Like GreenMan there, I got his name wrong. Why would he not say anything about that? See how quickly I changed that? I would have never known that if he wouldn't have said, hey, you got it wrong. And then what did I realize? I realized, hey, I can fix that. You see, that's the other opportunity people give you when they criticize, is criticism can be looked at as empowering. Here's my critique. You need to realize you have the power to do something about it. I did want to go back to the early question, GreenMan, where you and I had a discussion on Executive Espresso a couple Fridays ago about how your first video creation went, because you didn't come at it with a PhD in video production, I don't think, and it took you a few minutes, didn't it? If you can hear me.
Hey, yeah, I did. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. You sound great.
All right, nice. Yeah, no, it took me quite a few minutes. Just quickly on something you said, because I think it's really important. The I believe you are an amalgamation of the 5 people you hang out with the most, right? You are an average of those 5 people, so make sure you choose them wisely, and especially if you're doing something in the arts or something, where you're trying to achieve something, make sure that you're surrounding with yourself with people who are on similar missions, or at least just as hungry for success as you are. And when it comes to criticism, the criticism part for me, if I always try to focus on the intention of people rather than the words that they use, or why they're telling me something, or what they want me to think about them by what they're saying. Right, like those 2 things are very important, and it's a bit more objective, I think, as well. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Criticism is really important, because you don't really learn from winning all the time, right? You can win or you can learn. Those are the two options that you have. So yeah, never shy away from criticism, even if it's the bad, even if the harsh, nasty ones, I find funny, because it's quite hilarious that it's that extreme, right? And if you kind of take a step back and look at it that way, it's a bit funny. But yeah, going back to my first video was yeah, it took between about 16 to 20 hours, something like that, from start to finish. But then I was learning everything as I went along, and because I'm quite an extremist, I can't. My ADHD is just all over the place. I had to start from start to finish. So I sat down at like 6 a.m. I started writing script, and it was the first time I'd written script before. And then I had to record the voice for it, so it was the first time I'd done that. And then I had to put it into the editing software, the CapCut on desktop. And so everything was the first for me. But even learning how to put the music together and all that kind of stuff. So but straight into the deep end. I wanted to do it that way. That's the only way that I learn. And for me, learning any skill, the important bit is to learn just enough so that you can self-correct as you go along, right? So YouTube tutorials, all these kind of things, there's that's what's it called, paralysis by analysis or whatever. You can get too sucked into those things. Just learn exactly what you need, enough to be able to self-correct as you go along, and then just after that, roll with it. You've got time. You're building a brand. If it's something important to you, then you're going to do it. You're going to take that time. So yeah, so for the first video, the whole process took about 20 hours. I was sat there nonstop.
Wow.
And but the thing is, it flew by. I didn't even realize it, right? I mean, you get some dark curtains, you don't even know it's night or day. You could just proper concentrate on what you're doing. You block out the world and focus on the work. And also, I just want to go back to what you're saying about separating yourself from your work. That's really important as well. And a lot of people, when it comes to inspiration and stuff like that, people see it in different ways. They either see it's, I'm in a state of flow, or
Uh,
this and that. I see it as, the old fashioned way, where it's a muse. It's not me, it's my muse, right?
ah,
And I have to give my muse the proper conditions for it to come and work through me. Because if I believe that your thoughts, you don't control your thoughts. They don't come from us, right? How you react to them is very important, and that is you. But like, your thoughts aren't you. So in the same way, your inspiration isn't you. So you can't attach yourself to that. All you can do is give it the environment. Sit down and dedicate yourself to the work, dedicate to writing, whatever, and eventually that will come. But I don't think that we should. I don't attribute my work to me. That's just like the that part, the muse, whatever you want to call it, right? There's a great book to this effect. It's one of my favorite books, and I mention it all the time. It's called the War of Art. So it's a play on the art of war. It's by Stephen Pressfield, and he talks about this, especially when it comes to the writing process and any artistic endeavor. And if you're in the art, if you're doing anything in creative or even business wise stuff like that, it's a really good book to sit down, because it does kind of put it in a way where people get frustrated when they can't be. When there's no inspiration, they think, okay, come on, I got to write something. It got to be this, got to be that, blah blah blah. If you separate it and think, well, it's not me, it's I just have to show up, and eventually your brain will do it automatically, right? Your brain is a creature of habit. It loves habit. It doesn't like new shit, right? So if you sit down at the same time every day and you force it to write, eventually that flow will just happen naturally, and it'll become stronger and stronger. It's like a muscle. So I've been, obviously doing this for a year now, trying to do at least between 3 and 5 videos a week. Um, it's been a year now. Now it flows really quickly. I've noticed, actually, today I'm working on 2 videos in one day, and I'm editing them down. And I've noticed how much I've put into 2 minutes, where before I'd make like a 4 or 5 minute video, and I wouldn't say half as much. So you do these things naturally. You do get better at them, and yeah, every day's, as I said, every day's a school day, and you never stop learning, right? You have to kind of keep progressing. But yeah, I'll let it there.
I love that. Every day is a school day. It's funny you should bring that up, because I think some of the same thing about whatever it is I call my, being creative, is that it really is a bit of a disconnect, that it doesn't seem to come from me. I certainly don't take credit for it. I think I take credit for it when it sucks, because I think when it sucks, that was just me getting in the way of what GreenMan calls the muse. And so, whatever you want to call it, what GreenMan says has a lot of power, because the way the brain works, if you try to force it, you're telling yourself it's a catastrophe if I don't come up with it. And you can't create really amidst catastrophe. If you allow it, then things change. The other thing is to make an appointment for that creativity, make an appointment for those mindset shifts. It's really a very mindful thing. You're not forcing it, you're just showing up, giving it a window of opportunity for it to happen. My writing coach years ago, Martha, she said, make an appointment for your butt to be in the chair, and make sure your butt is in the chair at the time of your appointment. Why would you expect to create something if you're not showing up for the creation to happen? And that's exactly what I did. I began getting up very early. I get up around 4:30. I do the dishes. The dishes are right over there, by the way. You guys want to stop by and help some morning at 4:30, you're welcome to come by. I got dishes for you. And then after that, it's roughly, 4:50 or something. I'm getting my first cup of coffee. And then at 5 o'clock, where's my butt? Where my butt is exactly where I agreed for it to be. A lot of people, they want to create, but they don't even want to keep agreements with themselves to allow that creation to happen, to allow those mindset shifts to happen. So in wrapping up here, guys, we're going to kind of go around the room and talk about some of your own top level tips. I know we've shared a lot of them, but some things that our audience can walk away with today that you found really work for you. And if you guys that are listening have questions, we're now headed toward around 600 people here on Facebook, a little over 600. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Mindset Masterclass, X, and drop your question in the chat. I know GreenMan, Pep, or Jeremy, or myself would love to answer your questions. By the way, Waylon the farmer is taking applications. I don't know if it pays very well, but he's taking applications for good people to surround him. So maybe he'll give you a cup of coffee or something if he'll be one of the good people in his circle. Hey, Waylon, I'll volunteer for that. You know, I got a busy schedule, but buddy, I'll work you in. It's good to see you there. Waylon's one of those good people in my circle, as are all these fine scholars and gentlemen here today. So yes, if you have a question, I can't find you on Facebook. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. I don't, you know, I don't spend that much time on Facebook. I stream to Facebook twice a week on Mondays and Fridays. But hey, Waylon, you can help me out. Help me get famous on Facebook. No, I'm just joking. But we're going to be wrapping up here, guys, in about 3 minutes. So let me go kind of round robin and finish up with a top level tip. If you had one thing to tell yourself a year or two ago that might change where you are today, guys, what would that one thing be? Or if you told yourself that thing, you know, what was it? What would you reinforce? I mean, what good advice maybe did you tell yourself a year or two ago? Or if not, and you learned it, what would you go back in time and tell yourself to kind of put yourself in a better position when it comes to mindset? And so who wants to go first? And then we'll begin to wrap it up.
I can go if you like.
All right.
Well, for me, I think it's just reiterate. This is what I decided. Then this GreenMan project is the first time I actually decided to focus solely on the work and not get distracted by anything else, and just make it better for the sake of its own, rather than focusing on anything else. And I think a year into it, you know, it's starting to become a bit bigger and stuff. And now I think it's the same thing that I knew back then, was just, you have to, no matter what happens, you kind of have to stick to your guns and not falter. And that's the hard part, right? Is to, you had this vision when you started, and is kind of believing in yourself enough to stick to it, even though it's taking longer than whatever, right? So focus on the work, make sure that that's good for its own merit, not for any algorithm or metrics or money even. Just focus on that. You'll always succeed eventually.
I love that, because I literally know people that'll put up a post and then they'll sit there and stare at the like button thing. Okay, did anybody see it? Oh, is anybody out there? Come on, guys, are you not gonna like my stuff? Come on, where are you? Wait, hello. What a waste of time. Just keep going. Pep, what do you think? Then we'll finish up with Jeremy.
Yeah, I love this question. It's very much on theme for me. If I would go back and tell myself anything about this, let's say 2 years ago, I think I would tell myself, the internet is full of people who are ready to monetize your self-doubt, and they'll tweak their message to exacerbate it, and it will cost you a lot more than money, because once you paid someone, you put even more faith in their opinion. And eventually what you might learn is that if you could go back, you would have trusted your initial thoughts and actually tested them and experimented with them. Yeah, that's definitely something I would tell myself.
That's
Like,
awesome.
be with the self-doubt, and try things out first, and then seek guidance for what doesn't work.
I'm actually putting this up in the chat. I'm gonna put it on screen. give Pep credit for it. The internet is full of people ready to monetize your self-doubt. You're so right, man. I just love catchy aphorisms like that. You're absolutely
I'm
right.
happy you like it.
Yeah, yeah, man. Jeremy, what do you think? What would you tell yourself from a year or two ago?
Man, there's so many good ones because I could say stuff that, I mean, it's more about am I listening to it. So like start small, fail forward, do something small a day, desensitize. That's a big one. Like desensitize your fear of failure. And so for me, it's like desensitize not knowing something. And like that, like with this new therapy, of course I'm not going to know it yet. So what would I choose that maybe I haven't said before? How about bring back play and your success will follow. So basically, like the play of learning a new therapy. So there were a lot of laughs, there were a lot of aha moments, and a lot of feeling at ease in my training that I went to. And there's a lot. So I also teach EMDR therapy. I help to facilitate it. And there's a lot of laughs in those groups when I'm on the other end, when I'm in the trainer and facilitator role. And so play is something we've really lost in our culture because we, like, as was said, things get monetized. Your self-doubt gets monetized, and you learn tools, you learn strategies, and those are all great phrases. But what about a tool being thought of as an instrument or a loadout in a video game, or even a new kind of ball you can throw, or a new bat, something play related, because your brain is going to really savor play and enjoyment and feeling mastery. Mastery often is associated with sports play, right? With sports stars. So they probably started out as kids and enjoyed the sport and then had phases of like, oh, I've got to do this practice again. But I think when we get back to basics and the mastery, the intrigue, and the primal joy of play, we evaporate anxiety and self-consciousness of, am I doing it right? You can't learn to ride a bike if you're wondering, am I riding the bike right? You can't do it. If kids thought about, am I walking right, putting one foot in front of the other, they'd never do it. Thankfully, self-consciousness doesn't develop that young. So learn to play again. That's going to be my tip. Approach new things with an attitude of play.
I love that. I love that. And that's so perfect for what I'm about to say next is I will go back and tell myself, remember to have fun, laugh at your missteps and failures, and keep going. Have fun, laugh at your missteps and failures, and keep on going. Jeremy's absolutely right that just try this out as an experiment, guys. Wait for a moment when you're really experiencing high anxiety. Find something to laugh about and then see what happens to the anxiety. It will not be the same, and it may go away altogether because you cannot laugh when you're running away from a grizzly bear. And often laughing will show you that there's no grizzly bear to begin with. I doubt anybody out there has ever encountered a grizzly bear. That would be bad. Just ask that grizzly bear guy that, tragic. It's terrible. I can't believe I watched that. Ate him and his girlfriend. But tragic story. There's usually not a grizzly bear, And so I would remind myself, there's, like in the Matrix, instead of there's no spoon, there's no grizzly bear. Nothing bad is going to happen to GreenMan if the video doesn't go across the way he chooses or way he likes. And that's exactly what I do. I'll make a mistake. I'll drop something. I'll mess something up. I'll get names wrong and things like that. I did my Executive Espresso live stream on Friday with my great friend Andy Werdigel, and I had this crawl across the top with the name of the guest and the topic, and I check and I double check and I triple check. Now remember that I check, double check, triple check. After I got the thing up, even with all those checks, I had the wrong name and the wrong topic because I left it from the week before. Well, who's going to care? Andy said it won't matter, and he's right, it won't matter. Most of the mistakes you make No one will ever know about it. If they do, it won't matter to them. Or if it does matter to them, they'll just think it's funny and they'll be glad to know someone else makes mistakes too. So get out there and embrace missteps and failures, and you'll be amazed at the success you'll have. I want to thank GreenMan. You guys check out his account on X at GreenMan Reports, and check out at Pet Talks Blog and Jeremy at Next Level Psych. Love to have you guys come over, all you listeners, and join me on Mindset Masterclass. It is school.com/mindset. I'll put it up in the chat there. Remind you guys, we are back every Monday morning for Mindset Mojo, and it is brought to you by that link right there. So come over and join me, and we have deeper conversations on this. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to get out of here, and I'm going to have an after show for just about 2 minutes with my guest. Here's what I'm going to ask them. Tell me what went well. Tell me something I can do to improve. Give people permission to critique your stuff. You'll have better stuff. Thanks for coming. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye now.